What is up, everybody? It is me, Dan, aka Moderately Anonymous MTG. I am here with another episode in the How to Pilot series, and we are joined today by my buddy Hire from the Playing with Power crew. And just quickly before we hop in, we got all the usual sponsors: TCG Player, Inked Gaming, and make sure you check out our Patreon and our Bonfire store if you want to give some direct support to the channel. And without further ado, let's hop into it. Yeah, we got Hire here. We're here to talk about Kinnan. This is not the mid-range Kinnan list that's on the DDB. This is like slightly different. This is the Predators list. But Hire, let me kick it over to you and just let you introduce yourself and introduce this deck, and let's crack into it.
Yeah, awesome. So glad. Thank you for having me again, Dan. Yeah, my name's Alex. People know me by Hire. I am a Playing with Power member. I also have a podcast called Late Nights, and if you haven't heard the podcast within a podcast, Birds Aren't Real, a great little find if you check this out.
You gotta know where to look.
You gotta know where to look. And so yeah, super happy to talk about Kinnan today. This is one of my favorite decks that I brewed, and I am like I play it all the time. It's probably my most played deck. It superseded the Kenrith Evolution. So this is Predators. Mid Power Kinnan is a deck that I created that looked a lot like this originally. Mm-hmm. Originally, it had a lot of these creatures. It didn't have Millstone Gargoyle. That's new stuff. But it had a lot of the similar flip big fatties and do the things. But for an average player to pick it up and just play the deck, there was a lot of like inconsistencies because they didn't know when to activate Kinnan or like when to try to go for a win. And so I made
it's me. I'm the person.
So I made a mid-range list that was kind of easy to pick up. It's like, okay, go for a Hullbreaker Horror or Basalt Monolith and win the game. Like that's all you got to do. You don't really have to think too hard outside of that. There is cool activations, which I think you can lean on if you don't know what to do. I have 7 mana, don't know what to do. Activate Kinnan, you might get something good. This deck, however, is much more Staxy, and I think that's the biggest difference. Is there the Millstone Gargoyle and Void Winnower and Jin Gataxias and Wandering Archaic and Coma. Like these are Stax pieces that are just so heavy on the board. Once they hit, it's immediate, and that's what I wanted. I wanted immediate, like, gameplay changes. Like, oh shoot, Void Winner's on the battlefield. I have to be very careful with what I do now. And oh dang, Millstone Gargoyle. Dang, I have to be. Oh god, is that a Coma? Oh god, like that's what the feeling I wanted people to have. Oh,
to anyone not looking at the screen to read what Millstone Gargoyle does, because you probably don't remember that one unless you're like me, you've looked through every bulk bin you've ever seen. That is a 9 mana rare from Original Ravnica. It's a 4/5 flying artifact gargoyle that says that whenever the first non-creature spell each turn is played, counter that spell.
Yeah, I found myself playing more and more into pods that like were beating me because of their interaction, and I don't draw that many cards with this deck. And so I was just finding myself in a place where I was getting outdrawn and not having enough like space to interact. And so I used to be on way more interaction, and I found myself not hitting creatures, and I didn't like that. And so instead I was like, okay, I want to manipulate the top of my deck the best ways that I can and be able to get these really cool creatures out in many ways. So Kinnan's one way. Another way is Lurking Predators. Yeah.
Do you want to read off Lurking Predators for anyone who doesn't know it? Or I guess I got it in front of me. I can read it off. 4 double green enchantment. It says, whenever an opponent casts a spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, you may put that card on the bottom of your library.
That card is terrifying. I've played this card. Like, I will hardcast it every time. Like, anytime I see it, I'm like, that's my goal now. I want to hardcast this spell.
I've heard you talk very highly of it on several occasions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this deck, let's rewind. We're gonna rewind a little bit. I fell right into it. So Kinnan, let's look at Kinnan real quick. Kinnan, if you don't know what Kinnan is a green-blue Simic commander, human druid. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add mana +1 of any type that permanent can produce. And then you can pay 5. You look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a non-human creature card among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. So originally when I first saw Kinnan, I was like, I want to do the things. I want to put big creatures out. There was a guy named Yankee from the cEDH Nexus, and he had a deck called Titanfall, which he ran all the big Eldrazi.
Cool.
Yeah, and I was like, dang, this is sick. This is so cool. And I was like, but the thing about Eldrazi is that they're not that great, like, entering the battlefield. They're great when you can attack with them, but they don't have, like, immediate, like, effect. And I wanted creatures that had immediate effect. And so,
if you're missing the cast trigger, you lose out on a lot, and then you're relying on that attack trigger, which, like, only hits one person, and you might not even get it, you know? There's still, like, the Swords of Plowshares in everyone's deck and bounce spells.
There's a ton of stuff. There's so many things that are, like, really hurt that plan. And so I was like, okay, well, instead, let's look at what's in Simic. And I saw Void Winnower, and I was like, yes, please. At the time that I brewed the deck, the card Terracodon was a card, Nullstone Gargoyle was a card, and then I had like other big stuff that had been replaced since. So Coma was an addition when it got printed. Jin Gataxia's Progress Tyrant, that was an addition. And then Hullbreaker Horror is also an addition. And then some of the lines that are really crazy in the deck is Deadeye Navigator can go infinite with Peregrine Drake, which is cool, but unintentionally is really scary when it's soul bonded to Terracodon.
Yes. Yes, that is true.
You no longer have mana.deck. Yeah, so it's just a lot of like these cool synergies. Also, like you start noticing as like the deck began to progress, I noticed that I really wanted to be able to do stuff from the top of my library, like so bad. And so I looked at what some of the synergies were, and Lurking Predators, and that's why I had to go back, and now I'm coming back to Lurking Predators. Lurking Predators became such a thing because it's the top of my deck. Okay, if the top of my deck is important and I want to be able to do the most that I can, what are other cards that might be like really, really good with this thing? And I was like, all right, let me think about Kinnan. If Kinnan gets removed, Lurking Predators can take its spot. And if Lurking Predators can take its spot, okay, that's great. What else can I do? Right now, I'm actually going to do this on the fly while we're talking.
I mean, the best part about this is it's any spell. So, like, of course, like, we're catching all of the non-creatures, but, like, even, like, you know, just playing out your Mana Crypt. All right, I'm going to check and see if I got a Void Winnower first.
Yeah, like, let me just... And I've had that come up where there was a, like a person, like, cast their... I'm trying to think, what was the spell? They cast Underworld Breach and flipped
Heard of that one.
And they were just so sad. Like, oh my gosh, absolutely backbreaking. Like, oh my gosh. The card that I'm thinking of is, oh my gosh, it is Counterbalance. So Counterbalance is in my paper list. I'm actually going to throw it in here now. Feel free to refresh. So Counterbalance became another card that I thought would be really, really good, because Counterbalance also cares about the top card of my library. And I was like, okay, I'm liking where this is going. What else cares about the top card of my library, or how can I mess with that? Oh, I can use Sensi's Divining Top. Oh, wow, that's a really cool combo. So now it was play Counterbalance, play top. Okay, this is a good like way to deal with people. Add Lurking Predators. I now have a situation where I could possibly counter your spell and get a creature out.
It's ridiculous. It sets up really huge things, and I see you've also got the Scroll Rack in this list, which I think is not something in the mid power list.
Correct. Yeah, because I care about the top of my library. It became way more important to like keep looking at that and finding like value in that way. Also being able to control my draws, like those things became so important, and I didn't realize they would until I started running as many creatures as I run now, and it just got better and better and better. And now I find this is like a really good place for the deck.
This seems really solid. One thing I noticed when goldfishing the mid-power list was that, like, it seemed like there was a sort of higher frequency than I would have expected of not hitting bombs, but this has, like, such a hardy top end of bombs that it is, like, it seems like it would be, like, not hard to miss, but, like, a lot harder to miss, especially when you have all of these extra smaller engines going, like the scroll rack and the lurking predators and all of those things. It really seems like this adds up to, like, really be a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. And, like, I really want people to have an understanding of certain cards that they're like, why do you run this card? This doesn't make any sense. Thassa's Oracle. The bane of everyone's existence. Thassa's Oracle does a thing, and this is like the reoccurring theme. I care about the top card of my library. Thassa's Oracle changes the top card of my library and will...
Another combo with Deadeye.
Another combo with Deadeye, exactly. So with you're going to look at the top 3 cards because you're going to have Kinnan and you'll have Thassa's Oracle, right? And I'll just cast Thassa's Oracle. Like, I don't really care if it's on the battlefield or not. And I've found myself just like seeing more and more wins through this. And it's a hard win con that doesn't require a Finale of Devastation because you can make infinite mana, activate, like, this is an instant speed line. So there is a Nyxbloom Ancient. So Nyxbloom Ancient goes infinite with Grim Monolith, which rarely gets countered, like, ever. And so you can make infinite colors with Grim Monolith, and then you can do the Basalt Lines or whatever. But once you hit Thrasios, you can then just draw your deck. Or you can activate Kinnan, put all your creatures out, including Thrasios, Thrasios ETB, you can draw your deck, and then your devotion is equal to, I think it's 14. I think it's the total blue devotion you'll have if you have every creature out, and then you'll have an ETB with 14 cards left in the library.
That's amazing. Yeah, sure, because if you hit Thoracle anywhere along in the line, you just hold priority and keep activating Kinnan over the top of it until you hit the Thrasios, and then you can draw through or keep just going for the creatures.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So that line's in there. It's won me so many games, and it can win without attacking, which a lot of decks have a hard time with. Because, like, if you are in second main phase with traditional Kinnan, you can do all of the loops. You can make everyone's like hands and libraries go away and all that stuff. But like winning can be challenging because you're twister looping until you have like infinite swans. And then you can attack, or you can finale during the next turn, and you just have like a hand with a bunch of interaction, and no one has a hand or permanence. But to me, that's like really tricky if someone else has a Thassa's Oracle on the stack or something like that.
Sure.
With this list, I can win in response, which is really cool.
Starter in the chat asking a good question. How are we converting our colorless in the situation that we're making infinite colorless into other colors? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so there's a land in the deck called Treasure Vault. It says pay XX and sacrifice it, create X treasure tokens. So if you have infinite colorless, that translates into infinite colored mana. And that's one way you can do it. And you can get that off of a crop rotation. And that tends to work out really well for me. Also, you can use a card called Mirage Mirror. And this is a really specific loop that is kind of wonky, but it's really cool. Mirage Mirror says pay 2. Mirage Mirror becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn. Let's say I'm going infinite with Grim Monolith or Basalt Monolith. They both have untap abilities, right? So pay 3, or for Grim Monolith, pay 4 to untap it. So what you do is you can create a really large stack where you have Mirage Mirror target Basalt Monolith, hold priority, have Mirage Mirror target a land that can tap for green and blue. And then you keep holding priority, target Basalt Monolith again, and you create this really big stack of Mirage Mirror becoming a copy of Basalt Monolith, then becoming a copy of land. As it resolves, the Mirage Mirror will become a copy of the land. Remember, you already have infinite colorless. Mirage Mirror will become a copy of the land. You'll tap it for green. It'll become then that will resolve. That layer will resolve. The next layer, where it's a copy of Basalt Monolith, will happen. While it's a copy of Basalt Monolith, you will untap it with a Basalt Monolith's ability. Then the next layer of the stack will resolve, and it's now a copy of the land again. And now you can tap it for blue. And this layer these layers will allow you to convert all that colorless mana into colored mana. Really cool effect. Shout out to the smart people that figure that out. I'm gonna go with Pongo on this one. I think Pongo and his team, amazing. And Mirage Mirror is such a good card. Like, I've had like people go to their like, oh, I have Underworld Breach. I was like, okay, all right. In response, I'm gonna have an Underworld Breach.
Yes.
Or I'm gonna have a Rhystic Study when you cast your Ad Nauseam. I'm gonna have, like, it's just so, it's so good. It's so good. I've had people attack me with their, like, I don't know, their Winota, and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna make Mirage Mirror copy of Winota, and we're both just gonna lose.
I'll sacrifice a Mirage Mirror for that.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Yeah. So it's just cool. It's just really, really cool. Making Mirage Mirror copy of like other people's Elvish Norns is really fun.
That's super.
Yeah. So really, really cool. But that's how you make infinite colored mana in the deck.
Nice. So, we talked a little bit about the creatures in the deck and how those sort of work. Like Hullbreaker Horror, where we can make infinite mana and feed that through Kinnan as well as another sort of win con. Are there any sort of like really specific, like, can you talk about like the different matchups maybe where you're looking for some of these specific pieces?
Let's see. When I'm going against Ad Nauseam specifically, a lot of what I'm trying to do is get out things that make artifacts come in tapped, like Manglehorn. I'm probably searching for Manglehorn as fast as possible. It's so good. Or a Wandering Archaic. Like, both of those cards are pretty bonkers against Nas decks. I would love to be able to play like a Millstone Gargoyle or Void Winnower or even Jin Gataxias. Like, those would be also great picks to get out quickly. However, it might be a little tough to race Ad Nauseam. A lot of the time when I'm in those situations, I'm really trying to get Manglehorn. Honestly, Manglehorn's like the number one. Manglehorn, Wandering Archaic, and then if I can get Counterbalance online, like, that'd be great. But it's hard to search for Counterbalance. Like, I don't have anything that can just grab it. So I'm looking for those creatures instead. Also having access to Coma could be pretty brutal. I've
heard Sinestro talk about it being like really devastating against Stax matchups or like really gummed up boards, just being able to start plowing through with all these 3/3s.
Yeah, Coma taps down permanents, and I think that's really important because let's say I have a turn 1 Kinnan with a turn 2 activation. On my turn, I activate Coma, right? I'm player 1, and player 4 is the Ad Naus player. By the time he gets to Ad Naus player, I'll have 3, and if this was turn 2, I'll have 3 Serpents, and in their upkeep, I will just tap down their lands, so they can't combo.
Wow, you're going to play it that aggressively? That's really sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. Like, it's like that kind of thinking, like, oh, okay, I know what the threat is in this moment, because once it gets to my turn, I now have another Serpent, and I can then start worrying about the other players. But I need the other players to have at least one more turn so that we have enough interaction as a table to deal with the Ad Naus player if needed.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, yeah. I think a big part of like me really wanting to sit down with you and talk about this list is that like so many of these cards you're not as used to seeing at the comp table. So like I don't know that I would have thought to play it so aggressively, but that makes a lot of sense when you explain it like that. I really like that a lot.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Now there's a lot of like weird things. You really want to play into Stax metas. Like where we are right now, I feel like we're in maybe it might just be the people I'm playing with, but there's a lot of Stax in a lot of the decks I'm playing against recently.
Likewise, unfortunately.
And this deck loves that. Like a Rule of Law, you're down. You're 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. So like the thing that you're doing in against Stax is you're racing to get as much mana down as fast as possible. Like you should be mulliganing as aggressively as possible for a hand that creates 7 mana turn 2. That's what you want.
Okay.
And that's not as hard as it sounds, because you need 3 permanents that make mana that aren't lands to do that in Kinnan. So it's turn 1, land Finhorn Elf, turn 2, land Kinnan, tap Finhorn Elf for Bloom Tender. You now have 7 mana. You've done the 7 mana thing. Like that's what you want to see, and that's not hard. That's not in this.
No, and we've also got a pretty dense package of like cheap artifact mana and things like that as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's really easy. All of your rocks will tap for 2 when Kinnan comes out, so you can at least 2 at the bare minimum. So it's really easy to get to 7 mana. It's just you want to have that, and then your turn 3, you're ready to go. That means the Stax player has now access to 3 lands, so they play their Rule of Law, and if Rule of Law gets onto the battlefield and you have 7 mana, you are feeling great. Like, holy smokes. Let's go. I don't care anymore because I'm just going to activate every turn. That's all I'm going to do. Activate and hopefully hit something. And there is a very specific thing you should look for if it ever happens to you, if you're playing against Stax. So Sanctum Prelate. Sanctum Prelate is a great card, right? Okay.
You love all the things I hate. I love it.
All right. This is why it's good in this against Kinnan specifically. Not against Kinnan, but this is why it works with Kinnan. So let's say they play Sanctum Prelate on 1, right? And you go to activate Kinnan and you hit Void Winnower. People cannot play non-creature spells 0, 1, or 2. Now, let's say you get a Phantasmal Image and copy the Sanctum Prelate and put it on 3. That means it can't cast non-creature spells 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so the 5 mana is the first time that they can cast something. And ironically, that's Ad Nauseam. But
it's either Ad Naus or Force of Will, yeah.
Yeah, like that's it. That's all you got. And it's so like I've had this situation happen recently where I had 1, 5, and 7 were taken away, and all my opponents could cast was 3 CMC non-creature spells. That was it until like 9 or something crazy. Yeah, and so if you with this deck, it can get a little crazy, especially if you get Void Winnower and Nullstone Gargoyle, or Void Winnower and Jin-Gitaxias. Like it's so hard to cast spells. Like,
the consistency of those effects I thought was really cool in this build, because there's a Thorn of Amethyst as well down here to sort of like continue to hate on the.
There was a Thorn of
There was,
Amethyst.
and it's been dropped for the counterbalance. Okay,
for the counterbalance,
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was so Thorn of Amethyst was good, but the problem is that I ran not enough non-creature spells to like make me want to do that. It does break parity. I don't want to be like, it does break parity because Kinnan allows you to overcome Pain the One, but then you're doing something that you don't want to be doing, and that's playing the same speed as everyone else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why it's in the considering, but it's one of those cards that like with Kinnan counterbalance is like really good because it's immediate. You can tap out and have a counterbalance and feel good about it. Like that's because you find yourself doing that a lot. I activate Kinnan more often than not in my turn on my main phase, unless I know there's someone who has like an Underworld Breach in hand, and I don't want them to. I want them to cast Underworld Breach and then activate Kinnan on the off chance that I get like Hullbreaker, Horror, and I can just bounce Underworld Breach back to their hand. Like that seems great, but I don't want them to know, and that was like a big thing for me. What
are your like best case scenario hits for going for Kinnan activations on your turn? Like what are your best upsides for that rather than doing instant speed?
Honestly, Void Winnower is like my bae, but Nyxbloom Ancient is an amazing hit.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of. Jin-Gitaxias is another one that's really good because of how it interacts with your interaction.
Yeah, you don't want to like hit that one on the end step before you go to your turn. You get a lot less value, obviously.
Yeah, those are like great value pieces. Hullbreaker Horror wins you the game. Yeah, Hullbreaker Horror just wins you the game if you activate Kinnan and you get.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is we must be just trying to proc for like wins off of this, and that's got to be like numero uno, right? Hullbreaker.
Yeah. For me, I love having Kinnan. Like I also activate Kinnan a lot on my turn because I like activating Kinnan and hitting like Consecrated Sphinx or Seedborn Muse, or Coma. Like all 3 of those cards have immediate effect, and when we go into our next player's turn, like there's effects that I can now benefit from, and having Seedborn on the battlefield is absolutely terrifying.
And the gargoyle too, I guess, right? Yeah, you keep eating up more spells with that. Yeah, there's so much value to actually get off your own turn activation. That's really sweet.
Yeah, there's like so much that I don't know. When I look at now I'm looking at it, I see cards that can be really flexible. So if you get a Phantasmal Image, that also can be really crazy, because then you get a Dockside maybe, and that is just bonkers.
That's really funny, yeah.
Yeah, hitting an opponent's Dockside is like crazy.
And then you can go infinite with the Deadeye, right? Because that's a choose and not a target.
Yes, you can definitely go infinite with Deadeye and a Phantasmal Image. Something to, I guess, hold in the back of your mind is that a lot of people, when playing against Kinnan, this happens quite a bit. When you activate Kinnan, that's when they can respond. Right? It's like, okay, I'd like to activate Kinnan. Any responses? No responses? Okay. I look at the top 5, I put a creature on the battlefield, and a lot of people will say, oh, okay, in response. Like, no, you know what creature it is. It's just now here. This lives here now. It's so backbreaking when you put something on the battlefield. It's just a thing. Deadeye Navigator specifically, another one of those cards. When it enters battlefield, it has a Soul Bond trigger, and the Soul Bond trigger is the only thing they can respond to. And when if they pass priority on the Soul Bond trigger, then they don't have they no longer have priority, and it now is soul bonded to Phantasmal Image. And now I can activate this effect, and you have to kill Phantasmal Image in response. And in response to the sacrifice trigger, I can flicker Phantasmal Image again. It's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Yeah, like even if it was a Dockside Extortionist, they like path in response to the ETB trigger. As long as you've still got enough mana, you can just blink it again in response.
It's so nuts. There is windows, like if you respond to the Soul Bond trigger when it enters the battlefield again, and like, oh, how are you gonna stack the how are you gonna stack the ETB triggers? Okay, I'm gonna have it Soul Bond first. Okay, in response to that Soul Bond, now I can do it because it's not soul bonded. There's like a little window of interaction, but if you don't know like that exact moment, then it can be really, really hard.
Well, nice. Are there any other things that you want to talk about in the creature package in particular?
Reality Chip is a new ad.
Yeah, actually, I did want to ask you about the Reality Chip and ask you how that's been feeling in the deck. I haven't played with it at all, or actually seen it in play yet.
Yeah, it's great. It's great because it again, top of the deck matters, and like I've been able to like, okay, play Reality Chip, okay, equip it, all right, or reconfigure it, and I immediately now have actions on top of my library. I have a bunch of cards that care about the top of my library. What's really cool is I can see, oh, it's a creature, I have a Lurking Predators, or I have Kinnan. I can now activate Kinnan and now know 100% I'm going to get this really awesome creature. Or I see a counter spell on top of my library. Oh, okay, now I can interact with you. Like, it opens my hand to one more. And in a deck that the top deck matters, then that's all we want to see.
Yeah, that seems like some really good synergy to just feed into all the other like little smaller engines in this deck. It seems really fun, like all of these like little different cogs that really work together to make this a really sweet moving machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Creatures. Oh, Elvish Piper. That was the other thing. Elvish Piper is gas because you draw some of these big spells sometimes, and paying a green to put out a Terracodon is absolutely great. Just gas. It's just really good.
Yeah, again, just like the number of top-end threats that we have, that's a really, really strong Elvish Piper.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Nice. Well, let's talk about like the sorceries and the interaction suite a little bit. We've got just like pretty much basic evolution, Green Sun Zenith lines here. Is there anything? Are we ever like sacking Kinnan to go get anything? Are there like any particular jumps like that we're looking for in this deck?
The only reason why we would sack Kinnan is because we have like there is something that like we need to deal with, and we only have Kinnan. Like We have no other creatures, and that's killing Kinnan's the only way to get rid of this thing, because Kinnan doesn't get anything too impactful at
Yeah, I guess if
4
we're
or less mana.
Eldritch Evolution, the best we got is like, or the highest we got is Elvish Piper. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but a lot of the time when we are looking at trying to make things like good with Kinnan, we're looking to do Eldritch Evolution or Neoform on other creatures. And the one thing that's important is that because we're activating Kinnan, an example of this would be like Terracodon. Terracodon doesn't have as much of an impact once the ETB is done, aside it being a 9/9, I'm gonna hit you in the face elephant.
Yeah, it's basically, just like an infinite vanilla at that point, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it costs 8. So Eldritch Evolution, oh man, I can get a 10 drop or less. I can get Void Winnower. I can get any other creature in my deck.
Yeah, that's actually like super amazing that we can just like trade up, and even like the Nullstone Gargoyle, if we want to just like trade that into the Void Winnower to just be more effective at that point.
Absolutely.
That's really sweet.
And because Eldritch Evolution, like, you have to sacrifice Nullstone Gargoyle as a part of the cost. You don't have to worry as much about it being the first spell of turn.
Oh, nice. Okay, nice. Okay, cool. Scoots in the chat wondering if there's any consideration of value Birthing Pod.
Because the CMCs are so like big, different, and a lot of the time any creature that has value like a CMC of like okay, let's look at like the 5-drops. The 5-drops only go into Deadeye, right? Or Consphinx, I guess. But the 5-drops in this deck are really good. Like I want Seedborn Muse. I also want Wonder and Archaic. Getting Consecrated Sphinx or Deadeye is fine. Like I wouldn't mind them, but I don't really want to get rid of them. And all of the 2-drops go into the 3-drops, and that's just Manglehorn and Rexage. That doesn't feel that great. And then Hullbreaker Horror gets good stuff. It gets a Terracodon. But like there's just not enough. Like I would need to adjust some of the creatures so that I could Birthing Pod into something from something not that great into something that's amazing.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. There's just like, a sort of not high enough density of enticing enough jumps. Like if there were some more good, like Reclamation Sage or Manglehorn, those are both really good, like easy sacrifices, but the lack of like good 4-drops to pod into is definitely a lot less enticing. I can see that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Finale of Devastation, obviously another win con in a pinch. Green Sun Zenith gets us just about anything in the list, really. Like, it misses, obviously, all of these non-green things. But it gets us, what I mean more specifically is, like, any sort of technical slot that we might need, like win con or protection pieces, Elvish Piper, win cons.
Yeah, Green Sun for Seedborn all day.
Yeah. I guess let's delve into the instant suite. Something that I thought was really interesting in your interaction suite was Mystic Reflection. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Bro, Mystic Reflection's crazy. So Mystic Reflection, if for those in the back, when you play it, the next creature to enter the battlefield enters as a copy of another creature. Okay, cool. How do we use this for our benefit? Well, we can stop other people's Thassa's Oracles, which is great, or other people's Docksides, which is great. Or I can make a second Nyxmal Mansion. I'm down.
Yes.
And two Nyxmal Mansions makes one land tap for 9 times the amount of mana that you normally get. I'm totally down for that. And so, like, a lot of that kind of stuff. I've also had situations where I know, like I have an elf in my hand, and I'm like, okay, I'd love to have this elf be a Dockside, and being able to, like, okay, Mystic Reflection, cast this elf. Cool. All right, I have a Dockside. Sweet. So excited about that. And so there's just a lot of those kind of things. It just techs in a weird place. And the Foretell thing's really cool. There's just a lot. It's just a lot of different things like that. And Mystic Reflection continues to just be a good card.
Yeah, it seems like it exists in a really good space, especially for this deck where, like, I love Dress Down so much. It fits in all of those sort of niche scenarios where I need someone to not win off a Dockside or I need a Thoracle trigger to not go off. But for a deck like this, I can understand it hurting you a lot more, or in, like, more situations than it helping you. So, like, Mystic Reflection is, like, the perfect sort of more targeted replacement for that. That's really, really sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. Mystic Reflection just is, it's just good.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I like it a lot. Another card that I think is really good in this deck is Decisive Denial. Decisive Denial, like, oh, man. Okay, it's a miscast, essentially. It's a miscast. Or the fight mechanic is really cool because there's a lot of really big creatures that we control, and there's, like, also big creatures that our opponents control. Let's see someone casts a Gilded Drake and they want to take my Kinnan. I'll cast a Decisive Denial to have Drake fight Kinnan. And okay, I'm gonna kill my Kinnan, and you ain't gonna get it. I'm just gonna pay for it to recast Kinnan because Kinnan's a cheap commander. It's really just it's really good at dealing with stuff like that. And because I run so many big creatures, I can, like, make you fight my Void Winnower, and your creature is gonna die because Void Winnower is huge. And it's just stuff like that. I find it to just be really, really good in so many different little situations. And I have a way of brewing where I want to be able to deal with anything. And this is one of those cards that are flexible enough to deal with a lot of really unique situations.
It's interesting to hear you talk about these slots because when I was looking through this, I did notice that, like, the interaction suite is on the smaller side. So it seems like my natural line of thinking, I guess, just as a Storm player, is that I would want to be holding on to these interaction spells for a longer period of time. But it seems like you're pretty like, okay with letting them go and, like, just rocking them off, because I mean, I guess the whole deck is, like, pretty filled with control, right? So we don't need to worry individually about having, like, saving our Decisive Denial necessarily for, like, the most opportune time in the world, and we can just, like, be a little bit more aggressive with it and trust that we're going to keep grinding with our engine.
Yeah, a lot of the time when you can be pretty liberal with your counter magic in this deck, because a lot of the deck is geared to just be on the battlefield. Like, we're going to activate Kinnan. That's what we're going to do. We're going to activate Kinnan. We're going to put this thing that allows us to not have to worry about interacting. We're going to put this Void Winnower out, because if you have Void Winnower, then you can't cast Thassa's Oracle. Sorry, it's not going to be a thing you can do. You have to deal with the Void Winnower first. And that's, to me, that's really good. And also, like, I'm really high on counterbalance, and trying to get out the Sensi's Divining Top. Like, I'm like really aggressive when it comes to getting those spells out. I think they're just crazy. They're so good.
When you're getting into a game, like when you're building up, are you thinking about trying to control the board? Or are you thinking about just solely, like, setting up your engines? Where's your mind at when you're first setting up in the game? What sort of role are you taking with this deck?
A lot of the time, almost, I would say 95% of the time, I'm just looking for mana. I don't really care about anything else, because once I get Kinnan onto the battlefield, then I can start making some realistic choices. Rarely do I find myself in a position where I have to deal with stuff turn one. Like, oh man, there's a turn one win attempt. Like, that's really uncommon. I know cEDH, we always win fast. Nah, it's unrealistic to think that someone's gonna have a consistent turn one. Turn two and on, fair game. But for me, I can more often than not find myself in a situation where I have, like, turn one land Dork, turn two land Kinnan, leave the Dork up for interaction, and then I can pass or cast a rock. If I happen to have a rock, then I'll cast the rock, and then we're good to rock and roll our next turn.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, like, I can also understand maybe it's just not our role to be the police of the table in certain situations. Like, we just need to commit some time to being able to build up a bit. Are you concerned with holding up interaction for when you're going for win attempt, say with like a Hullbreaker Horde or something like that? Are you gonna like try to hold off for a long time to like maybe wait until you can get your Veil of Summer ready or something like that? Or are you gonna try to like, are you just gonna try to keep throwing haymakers until no one can like get through it anymore?
I would say that, like, if I were to go for, I wouldn't say Hullbreaker Horde because it's an uncounterable spell, but they're like, if someone
bad
were
example
to,
on my part, but
yeah, no worries. But if I was trying to go for a win attempt using like Basalt Monolith, which is like a red flag. Oh, Basalt Monolith, guys, kill the Kinnan, kill the Basalt. For me, there is probably some space where I want to hold an interaction because of that. But if Basalt Monolith gets countered, it gets countered. Like, that's fine. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. I get worried if I start finding myself in a situation where I can't produce mana. So I would say that's probably the if you were to attack Kinnan, more this build of Kinnan, if you attack my mana, it becomes much more. If you attack my mana, it becomes so hard to win because I have big mana spells. You keep killing Kinnan, and I no longer can like do what I was trying to do in the first place, which was get Kinnan out, activate Kinnan, or have some sort of engine that uses the mana that I'm creating. And so I find that, like, I'm trying to think of a situation where there was a pot I played in where someone had like a Collector Oof, it was Collector Oof, a Curse Totem, and I had only like 2 lands. And I was like, I'm out of this game. Yeah. Like, I'm out of this game because you're not only are you attacking the mana, but you're also attacking the mana and you're attacking my ability to activate Kinnan. So there's like just so much for me to like deal with, and it's just challenging, man. It's challenging.
Yeah, it seems like our win cons are like layered enough that it doesn't really matter per se if like Grim Monolith, Basalt Monolith get countered or whatever, because like still like you can just get there by having a bunch of brick shit houses, or like actually just using all of these different creature combos in the deck that are so much harder to get off the battlefield than a Grim Monolith is.
Yeah, that's why I like playing Grim Monolith, because it can go infinite, but it more likely won't, but it can, and that to me is great. And it taps for 4 colorless, which is a lot of mana.
Yeah, the ritual just into all of these big things, and I love having like the Nullstone Gargoyle as an additional thing next to the Void Winter that like you can just dump a bunch of mana of any variety into to be able to get some gigantic beater on board. That's really, really sweet.
Oh, my favorite, if I have infinite colorless and just playing like Wandering Archaic, it's like, here's a Wandering Archaic. Everyone's like, dang it, you're not supposed to have that. It's not, this wasn't supposed to be in your hand. Sorry, bud. If you, by the way, Wandering Archaic, fun things, which you get for playing too much Kinnan. If you have Wandering Archaic out and have 7 mana to activate Kinnan, it's very specific. So you have Kinnan out, right? Wandering Archaic, and someone else decides to cast Doomsday. You 100% copy the Doomsday. And your Doomsday pile is Pact of Negation, Thassa's Oracle, and Endurance. And then you can have like Void Winnower or Hullbreaker Horror or whatever. That could be the other cards you get. Or actually Deadeye Navigator. That's the other card you might want. And so what you do is your turn, right? So let's say the person they get their plans get foiled, whatever. And it goes to your turn. You draw the Pact of Negation. You activate Kinnan, put Thassa's Oracle. You have 3 cards left in library, and Kinnan and Thassa makes 3 devotion to blue.
That's beautiful. I love that you already have a plan for Doomsday in mind. It's
happened multiple times. It's
multiple
ridiculous.
times. That's wild. Oh man, yeah. I want to play in the pods you're playing in. And actually, in that same vein of thought, I wanted to ask you about intuition. What's our intuition lifestyle like in this deck? This is like there are so many weird pieces. I don't know what we're getting with an intuition. Maybe interaction. I don't know.
It really depends. It's a tutor. It's a tutor for you in this deck.
This is just flexible, whatever kind of situation, and we'll find something to use it for. Yeah, so I'll go for like 2 tutors and a Noxious Revival more than likely. So it'll be like a Worldly Tutor and a Green Sun Zenith and Noxious Revival. Because I'm probably looking for a creature. And
Another thing is like you just get 2 big creatures and a Noxious Revival, and they have to give you one of the creatures because.
Oh man, that's really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want Noxious Revival in my hand with 2 big creatures. Because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna activate in response. I'm gonna have this free Noxious, give me a free creature, I'm down. Definitely, there's no like intuition I win lines. There's just a lot of intuition value lines, and the colors in Simic, like you can't search for stuff so easily.
Yeah.
Specifically non-creatures in this deck. So I might, who knows? I might put like Noxious, Seedborn Muse, and Lurking Predators into that pile. And you're just like, I hate this. I don't want any of this.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, is that it's like I love the Haymaker Soup intuition piles that you can make with this. That seems really, really sweet. Crop rotation, I think we chatted about a bit already. Treasure Vault we can grab, Gaia's Cradle. Is there any other like super fancy things in the interaction suite we want to talk about?
No, I think those are the big ones. Worldly Tutor is like a really crazy card in this deck. Obviously, you can activate Kinnan. I would say more often than not, I don't get that spell to resolve. It usually always gets countered, and very rarely will someone allow me to have a Worldly Tutor.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, much more high profile thing for this, but I like that. That's almost like it's it's a second Autumn's Veil.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure nothing's going on right now. I'm gonna cast this Worldly Tutor and see what people think.
Yeah, it's a good bait. It's definitely a good bait. Also, you can I do a lot of politicking in games I play in, and so you can be like, oh, let me someone has a Thassa's Oracle on the stack. Okay, let me Worldly Tutor for a response here. And people will be like, what are you going to get? I'm like, I'm going to get something that will stop this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it's like, just Jin Gataxius, and I put it on top of my library, and then I'll flip it, and the next instant sorcery gets countered. Like...
Yeah, everyone would want you to just get Endurance, but you'd be like, you know what else? Also, stop the Thassa's Oracle. Avoid Winnower.
Avoid Winnower. Let me just do this real quick. Come on. Yeah, there's a lot of little things like that that are really tricky with the interaction package for sure.
Well, nice. Yeah, the artifacts we talked about, I think we got into the most tricky of things. Enchantment's also pretty stock outside of what we've talked about. Training Grounds obviously helps us out with Kinnan activations. Are there any other tricky Training Grounds things in this deck? I guess Deadeye Navigator reduces it down to just a single blue.
Yeah.
And the Thrasios, of course.
Yeah. I guess the only things that are like actually tricky in the deck are I think this will be true for a lot of people, is finding like the rhythm. That can be kind of hard because you'll think, oh, I'm just gonna activate Thrasios. Hire said to activate Thrasios in his main phase. There are definitely exceptions, but I would say try your luck and see what activating Kinnan could be for you. There might be situations where you have Kinnan and Thrasios and you have access to 8 mana, and it could be 2 Thrasios activations or a Kinnan activation. Sometimes it's better to activate Thrasios twice. But you remember you have way more creatures and you do interactive pieces, so it's a gamble.
Yeah, it can be tough to choose in those situations, but that is a really good point. Yeah, that you probably have more of a chance of hitting an interactive creature than you do of proccing an individual spell off the top. Because, we're getting both more looks, and we also have just more things to hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Scotty, good question. How does this deck deal with cEDH All-Star Suppression Field?
Good question.
Ugh, gross.
You play Training Grounds, and then you're back to even.
You play Training Grounds. That's how you do it. I'll start even. I'll start even. Yes, you can't even play that card against me because I'll have a Void Winnower before you get suppression.
It's odd costed though. It gets around it.
Dang it! I thought I could get around it. I would say honestly, suppression field sucks. Like, it would be really, really tough. The big thing I would probably do is go for a Lurking Predators. Like, try and find a way to get that card onto the battlefield. Then anyone who plays a spell gives me a Kinnan mini activation. Cards like that, like Suppression Field or Curse Totem type effects. I'm just on the Lurking Predators game plan and trying to get that, or trying to get Hullbreaker Horror as fast as possible. Sure.
Nice, I like that. All right, well, before we close it out with a Q&A from chat, do you want to just like give us a rundown of like what are your like philosophies for going into games with this deck? What kind of hands are you looking for? What sort of position are you trying to play at the table? Like, what are the strongest ways in your mind to try to pilot this deck for someone who has maybe not piloted it before? How would you try to coach someone in like early games with Kinnan?
Absolutely. Well, let's play test the hand.
Sure, yeah. Let's take a look.
For me, yeah, a lot of the hands I'm keeping is just trying to get like this hand. Okay, so I would keep this hand primarily because I am going to get a Unstable Harmonics Rhystic Study. I'm gonna get a Rhystic Study and Sensi's Divining Top turn 2. And so I would keep this hand. And then my goal from that point forward is to just draw cards. And I get a draw, and then I get a look at 3 cards after my second draw. And so I'm feeling like I'll probably be able to get another land. If I get another land, then I'm gonna just move forward with whatever I draw with Rhystic Study, because Rhystic Study turn 2 is pretty good. It's pretty good. You're probably gonna draw 4 or 5 cards.
I would imagine. Yeah. So we're like comfortable like sitting back a little bit, taking a control roll with a nice value hand like this. That makes sense to me too, because I mean, like between the Rhystic Study and the Sensei's Divining Top, we've got some really good pieces on board. We're drawing into like green mana for the Selvish Piper into Terastodon, which is also really sweet. Nice. Do we want to take a look at another one?
Sure.
What do you think about this?
Okay, it's good. This is a good test. This is an okay hand. It looks gas because you have Basalt, you have Mystic Remora. However, if either of those spells get countered, you are so sad. You can, because it's going to be turn 1 fish, but you need a turn 2 Kinnan. And so you won't be able to pay for fish turn 2. And so I would probably send this hand back, only because I have no interaction, I have no protection for what I'm trying to do. If the line works and turn 3 I'm able to get Basalt Monolith, I still have to wait a turn for me to try to win. Because I can Finale of Devastation for infinite and get Thrasios, and then draw my deck that way. But it's really sketchy.
Yeah, we're not like jumping the line anywhere. If we get that Remora misstepped, we're really hurting. That makes sense. Yeah. Let's take a peek at another one. Oh, here's all the fatties. Let's go.
And you'll see this from time to time.
Sure. Yeah.
2 fatties, no mana. We have to throw this back for sure. Oh, look at that. We have no lands. Oh, no lands. Oh, no.
All right, Theoretical 5. What do we see? Oh, this isn't bad.
I would keep this hand.
Yeah, this is a very solid Theoretical 5.
Yeah, I would throw the Intuition and Wandering Archaic. And then land birds. And then turn 2. You could do Kinnan turn 2, but I probably would do Reality Chip. Ooh, no, I would do Kinnan turn 2. Kinnan turn 2, because then I now have access to 3 mana, and I can Crop Rot the Tropical Island into a Gaia's Cradle.
Okay. Oh, Reality Chip, only a creature when it's not reconfigured. Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah, yeah. So at that point, I'm just trying to create mana, and I'll still have Veil of Summer, so I can cast the Reality Chip with Veil backup, and be able to pass the turn. This is a slower hand, but we're down to 5, so that's what I would. I
mean, at 5, I think it's pretty good. You know, I mean, turn 1 Dork at 5. I like it. Let's see if we can find another keeper. This one, I think, a little bit too sparse.
Too sparse on the non-land mana creating permanents. Yep. Sure.
another interesting one. Yeah, Brainstorm and Mystic Remora is
Yeah.
a good bet
that's
for our one drops.
We'll see something.
I want to. Yeah, this is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see one just slam fucking dunk hand.
This is insane. Oh my god, this hand's crazy. Yeah, you just go ham here. So this
And
is...
we get a draw. Hold on. Let's see what the draw is too for turn. It's a land.
It's
Excellent.
It's a blue land. That's so important here.
That's really
oh my god.
sweet.
Okay. So I would actually go pedal. Can we win? Hold on.
Let's just go to the playtest screen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Let's just
so
go to the
bananas.
playtest screen. All right.
Okay. So you play the land. You play the pedal. Okay. Yeah, you can win. And then you sack the pedal to play Kinnan.
Okay. Why aren't you pressing G?
There it goes there, and then tap the land because we had to pay for Kinnan. Then you play the mana crypt, tap crypt for 3, play basalt, make infinite mana with basalt, then play the arcane signet. Arcane signet first.
Oh, arcane signet. Sorry.
Arcane signet. Tap the signet for 2 blue. Cast Hullbreaker Horror.
Oh my god, yeah, this makes the 2 blue.
Cast a Felwar Stone, and then now you have access to colored mana. It's a turn 1 win.
And then
that's crazy.
That's nutty. Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. I just wanted to ball until we get to 1 turn 1 win. All right, that's perfect. That's what we wanted to see, everybody. All right, perfect. We don't need to go through the playtesting section anymore. We beat it. We beat the playtester.
That was bananas. Oh my god. And like that's just crazy. That hand was just so wow. Anyways, that was a great way
to land off
it.
the top. We'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Let's throw it to chat though. If anyone, I saw we had a few spatters of questions throughout, so I'll just pull one up that we had from before. But anyone in chat, just drop some questions that you got for Hire or myself about the deck or anything else, I guess. Any consideration for Arcane Laboratory in this deck? That's the blue Rule of Law from 7th edition for anyone not familiar with that one.
Oh man, your knowledge is great. There was Arcane Laboratory. It was in for a little bit. I found it hard for me because I was paying for the Rule of Law, and I never want to be the person who does that. Like, I want to be able to play through a Rule of Law, not play the Rule of Law and try and like go through it, because it's 3 mana to do that, and like most games, I'd rather activate Kinnan than play the Rule of Law. So I just plan to play against the Rule of Law, and if it never comes and I'm desperately in a situation, that's when Arcane Laboratory was okay in the playtesting of it. But I definitely think it was something pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like you just get to be so much more aggressive than that. That's a really big tempo play tapping out for that. Our buddy Woodland Deckhouse asking anything from New Capenna that you're making room for.
Nothing yet. I didn't see anything that was a huge all-star for me. Transmute Artifact and another possible tutor. So good thing, good question. One really important difference between this list and what you like not Mirage Mirror, but the Mirror Loops list that you see that's really dedicated to Basalt Monolith combos is the lack of those types of tutors in the deck, because I'm not so reliant on Mirage Mirror and Basalt Monolith, and I'm really trying to look for a mid-range game plan. I think those tutors are great, and I think for the lists that are really on the Basalt Monolith game plan, that's the way to go. However, I find myself more often than not wanting to have interactive pieces, because if I just have Basalt Monolith, I can't win the game. And a lot of the decks that are on the Basalt Monolith plan have more Thrasios type creatures in it that can win with just colorless. And because I don't have that, it becomes really, really hard to just have Basalt Monolith.
Oh yeah, the other ones are on that weird Eldrazi, the Devoid thing that draws for. Yeah, I forgot about that. And it seems like similar to the pod question. It seems like we just have not a super high abundance of things that we're willing to sacrifice to make into a Basalt Monolith. Because like you said, we need to be able to make colors of mana. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about something like Sylvan Tutor? You ever give any consideration to that? The sorcery speed worldly tutor?
Yeah, Sylvan Tutor was in the list for a bit, and I actually liked it. The problem that I kept facing though is that whenever I would cast it, I'm now like I can't be reactive, and I want to be reactive with this list. Sylvan Tutor is like, okay, I want to get Seedborn Muse because that's the card I like and it's the best, or I want to get Void Winnower. But if I do that, now my opponents have more information than I wish they had, and it's like, oh, I reveal this Void Winnower. Okay, Kinnan activation. In response to Kinnan activation, I don't know, flash in a Containment Priest because that's a cEDH All-Star staple.
I was thinking about that as we were talking about, like, it's really nice that the things that Kinnan folds to are things that are very unpopular, like Containment Priest and Curse Totem.
Yeah, Containment Priest, man. If someone flashed out Containment Priest, I'd just be like, oh man, this is... Good thing is that you may put a creature out. Oh my god, if I had Lurking Predators, oh, that'd be so brutal.
Oh, that's not a May, huh? Yeah.
That's not a May. That is actually a downfall of Lurking Predators. If you didn't know this, if someone casts Gilded Drake, there's going to be a Lurking Predators trigger, and it will put the creature on the battlefield before the ETB happens. So they can steal your Void Winnower, and then you're just sad. You're just not happy anymore. That's any other questions?
No, nothing else here in the chat. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with for thoughts on Kinnan or anything else before we get out of here tonight?
If you like mid-range, this is a great mid-range list. It grinds really, really well. There's lots of room for, different.
I'm sorry. I'll drop your deck list here in the chat as well.
The show. If you have any interest in playing a deck like this, try it out. I've played I've played Nezahal. I've had the old Jin Gataxias. I've had all kinds of creatures in this deck, and they've all been really, really fun. I had It That Betrays for a bit, because I don't like having friends.
Yo, It That Betrays is cool though.
Yeah, there's room for a lot of cool things. Right now I'm really focused on trying to get there's a Protein Hulk version of this list that I'm helping people work on, where you sack Hulk and get it's a multi-Hulk line. It allows you to get Thassa's Oracle and Leveler.
Oh my god,
just absolutely bananas. But there's just a lot you can do, and I don't think that there's any one build that I feel is correct or the strongest. I just think there's a lot of builds that are really good. So take a look and try it out.
Nice, awesome. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, one of the best ways to support us is by leaving a comment and hitting that like and subscribe button. It's incredibly helpful and always appreciated. If you want to support the channel more directly, join our Patreon to catch episodes early, join our private Discord, and get some other awesome benefits. One final thank you to all of our patrons who make great content like this possible. And thank you for watching. Be good to yourself, everyone.